that squares exercise,
Sorry?
when we're doing this squares exercise, will you be able to pause the recording at that point in time and then restart it again?
Yeah,
because I don't want to get people to be too familiar. I don't want that to go viral in a way.
Yeah, I can actually.
Yeah, so that square will stop it. We'll pause it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, okay. By continuing webinar, you're consenting to be recorded. Continue. Okay.
Yeah.
I found those books that we spoke about.
Okay.
So I'll send them across to you.
Cool. So thank you everyone for joining in. We have about 6 attendees. I'm sure people will join in subsequently as we go along. But since we already have people in the room, I think we should respect their time and start on time as well. So thanks everyone for joining in. This is the first session that we are doing in the digital transformation series. And I'm really excited about doing this series of engagements where we bring in thought leaders and practitioners together in the pursuit to figure out how best we can do digital transformation. So before we start, maybe if I can ask each one of you to on the chat quickly write down as to what is the most innovative thing that you've seen or heard about in the last week or 10 days. So quickly, if you can just put it on the chat, it should be at the bottom of your screen or at the right hand side, depending upon which app you're using for platform. It need not be as SAP related, it can be anything. But yeah, thank you so much, Sujata, for mentioning S/4HANA there. Anything that you've seen as innovative as such? As it'll be as effective as we make it. So I would really encourage that you participate and share your insights. Okay, Power BI is another one. Thanks, Sujata. Anyone else? Okay, I think let's start the conversation. I'd like to invite our guest today, thought leader, best-selling author, Porus Munshi. Porus, can I ask you to maybe introduce yourself and take it away from there?
Sure. So good morning. As Mukesh says, my name is Porus Munshi, and it's a pleasure being here. Digital transformation is something that's been very, very close to my heart because most of my focus has been on transformation and leapfrogs. So what does it take for organizations to leapfrog? What do I mean by leapfrog? Not incremental steps, but how do you skip several steps and do a leapfrog? And I've been doing leapfrogs with organizations, with businesses for about 15, 16 years now. And it has really never been easier. With digital coming in, it's never been easier to leapfrog. And we will go through today about what does leapfrog really entail in different dimensions, and how do organizations really use it to make a jump take place. Because very often digital has come in, but it hasn't changed much. Things don't really change too much. We have a new technology, but old mindsets. And therefore, with the old mindsets, we get incrementally better results when the results can actually be transformational. And a lot of my work is with, ironically, with many technology organizations to help them do digital transformations. Because if your organization is born before 2007, you're probably a tech dinosaur, even if you're a tech organization. And we have older systems, older ways of working, older ways of thinking. And when technology comes in, it makes a shift in a small area, but it doesn't really create the huge leapfrog that the organization really wants. So how do you actually think about that? And as we'll see a little bit later, it's the mindsets that interfere, not the technology really. So what kind of mindsets, what kind of strategies do you require to use digital to the scale and impact and fulfill potential? So it's been a pleasure working with many of these organizations, and some of them with the government. I'll share some examples with you about how the GST has been a very interesting journey as well. So that's a bit about me.
So do you want me to launch the poll, Porus, before we start?
Yeah,
And
sure,
then,
sure.
okay.
Yeah, nice.
So can I request you to respond to the polls, please? Let's give it a minute or so for people to respond to the polls.
So if you notice, this is a 5-point scale. So which of these most aligns with you? It's a confidential poll. Nobody really knows who did what.
This is strange. Nobody responding to polls also. Guys, so maybe I should have made this an anonymous poll.
But it's not, is it?
It's not. It captures people's names. So
Okay, okay.
okay. So looks
That's
like
okay.
nobody wants to.
Later.
Nobody wants to go first. So okay, we have one. Okay, so let's give it another 10 seconds for us to see
Sure.
if others are willing to join in.
Sure.
Nobody will see the names. Yeah. Okay. Someone else. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So let me another last 3 seconds and then I'll end the poll. Okay. So this is the results for us. If you can see the results.
Sure.
So for the first question.
So 60%, 60% of first question are between implement technical level and efficiencies.
Yeah.
Second question, about 80% is between technology with old mindsets but new approaches, new technological mindsets. That's 20%. And again, 80 to 90%, 80 to 100% is willingly adopt, okay? But reluctant acceptance is the most. About 80% is resist and accept reluctant. That's a norm with what we've been seeing elsewhere as well. So indifferent, look forward to the journey. Yes. So that's again, and that's great. So 60% look forward. And I'm guessing these are mostly the technical people in the organization, not the non-technical people.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks for that. So that gives a very good input about. So we are apart from what I've seen very often. The fact that many people look forward to it, but when it actually comes in, it can be a little bit scary for some people. So that's great. So shall we start off? Okay, shall we continue?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. So we're speaking about leapfrogs and digital. So the best way to start off with a video of one gentleman who's used digital and created a complete leapfrog. His name is Mishkin Ingawale. And take a look at it itself. It's a TED talk. So it's self-explanatory. And take a look at what this gentleman has done. And then we'll discuss it after the video gets over.
I've always liked to build stuff. My team at Biosense, a startup I co-founded with my doctor and engineer friends, has built a technology called ToucHB, which can do blood testing of hemoglobin without pricks, without needles. I believe this is going to democratize healthcare. Those are two big words. I don't know what they mean. In fact, in 2009, I was even more clueless. I had absolutely no idea what's going to happen next. I was, in fact, busy trying to finish off my PhD, which was in a completely unrelated area of how people interact, contributors interact, how articles are formed in Wikipedia, trying to figure out how quality emerges from the system. I was also building something called the Copenhagen wheel, which is just a really beautiful, beautiful electric bike at a lab at MIT called Sensible City Lab. I was lucky enough that I visited Mumbai, my house, back for a vacation. So at that time, I was planning a road trip. I visited a place called Parol, about 2 hours north of Mumbai. This is a place where my friend Abhishek Sen was interning. He's a doctor there. That's his actual photograph. So Abhishek actually made me wait. He was out there in Parol delivering a baby. I was waiting, and when he did emerge, he was ashen-faced. He told me that there had been 2 deaths and child both. The reason he told me was something called postpartum hemorrhage. He explained this meant severe internal bleeding. What was really shocking for me was that he said that this is entirely due to undiagnosed anemia. Now, anemia, I'm an engineer, but even I knew that anemia is something which is not supposed to be fatal. It is something which, for which the cure is known. I mean, folic acid, iron tablets, very cheap, affordable cures exist to control anemia. So why was this woman dying? I mean, it was completely preventable. I had 5 minutes away from there, I had a center, a government center, which was distributing subsidized iron tablets. So the whole nature of this thing completely shocked me, and I knew that there had to be a way to prevent this. My mom is a pediatrician, and I asked her. She told me that this is how you would typically test for anemia. Take a blood sample and run it through a machine called a Coulter counter. This is a $10,000 machine which was available in Mumbai. It's also available here or in any part in, I guess, in Europe and most cities in the world. But this is not available in Parol. Also, that woman who is operating the machine, the technician, is not available in Parol. Now, this struck me as, I love to fix things. I wanted to fix this. I got a friend of mine, an engineer, and 3 other doctors. Abhishek joined the team, and we wanted to solve this problem. By the time I step down from here, there'll be 10 people who would have lost their lives to a completely preventable problem. Now, let me take you back to Parol, right? You saw the woman there, the nurse. In India, this is called the Asha worker. It's essentially a village health worker, a matron. She is really the center of the healthcare system. Public healthcare runs on the Asha worker, not the doctor. Now, we knew we had to design something which she could use. We knew it had to be these 3 things that the machine had to have. We knew it had to be something which had no needles, no pricking, so it would have adoption, it would not have medical waste, all those problems. It had to be simple enough for that woman, Asha worker, to use. And thirdly, it had to be something which she could carry in her kit. She goes village to village doing screening. We thought we could build it, so we built it. And but it didn't work. So we built it again, and we did this 32 times. But I'm very excited to tell you that last year, we did build it. It works. And I have it here in my purse. So this is a machine called the ToucHB Quick. What it does is it measures hemoglobin, oxygen, and pulse rate. I put it on my finger, switch it on, and in about 20 seconds, it'll give me on the little screen here a value of hemoglobin, oxygen saturation, and heart rate. This will help ASHA workers diagnose anemia at the point of care. I'll explain a little bit about how it works. You might have seen a little light inside of it. In fact, there are 3 lights in there, 3 wavelengths of light. And we essentially pass light right through the tissue. And from understanding how much of it is transmitted, how much of it is scattered, and how much of it is absorbed, we can figure out how much hemoglobin is there in blood. And this is something which is based on a principle called photoplethysmography. We are actually pretty excited about what else non-invasive techniques like this will be able to crack in the future. One of the things which my intern here, Pritesh, built is a mobile application which can now send all this data anywhere it wants to go. There's a bunch of very exciting stuff which we are doing. I would love to, tell you a little bit more about it. But fundamentally, what I believe is that the map behind of me is called, basically the map of anemia. It's the death rates caused by anemia globally. You'll notice, of course, that there are hotspots, South Asia, Africa. My business plan is very simple. I'm just going to sell these to every clinic in the world, right? That's a simple one-line business plan. And by the time I'm done in 2020, when the WHO publishes the data again, this is going to be the map of anemia. Thank you.
So that's the true power of digital. And I wonder really what stood out for you. What stood out for you? Most people usually say the sheer scale of thinking. But if you notice, the true impact of it is simply how did it really start? With the Leapfrog challenge, the scale of challenge. It wasn't just make a dent or make a difference. It was eliminate anemia-related deaths, eliminate it across the world. Now, with that scale of challenge, your inputs, your products, your offerings would have to change, and the cost would have to be transformationally different. So, from a $10,000 machine, he's created a $50 machine to be able to do that. Third, he created constraints. These are the three key elements for a digital transformation or any transformation really. The scale of challenge, crash resources, and as an enabler, the constraints you create. You cannot depend on the assets, the processes, the systems of the old world. It has to be completely different. So the constraints that he created here were that there should be no needles, no pricking. So there won't be any blood being taken from there. The second constraint was instant results. Instant sharing of results. Third, anybody can use it. You don't need a trained technician to use it. So the moment you have the challenge, the crash resources, and the constraints, then you have the start point of something that is transformational in nature. And it's never been easier than with digital that we're seeing at the moment, really. Also, if you look at the potential impact of the small $50 machine, the potential impact is truly transformational on the whole industry, because in the diagnostics industry, you have needles, you have needle manufacturers, you have syringe manufacturers, you have the spirit manufacturers, people who use spirit to disinfect the area. You need a trained person to put in a needle into a vein and ensure there is no infection, because the moment you put something into the vein, there's always going to be problems. To draw the blood out in rural India, to put the blood into different vials, to store it, you need a cold chain to transport it 300, 400 kilometers to a place where there's a cooler counter. You need a trained technician for that. You need the person to make it work, write out the results, somebody else to sign off on it. Then that report is sent back to this person. Look at that entire ecosystem that is involved in this. And with just that single machine and a smartphone, the entire thing is completely short-circuited. And the potential is huge, because today it is anemia. Tomorrow it can be any blood disorder. The day after tomorrow it could be bacteria in blood, could be viruses after that. So the true impact is just starting over here. And we are in the early days of this world at the moment. So that's the real power of what can be done. It actually does away with all that we've taken for granted. So digital is changing an industry. So it's a Leapfrog challenge, crash resources, it's globally unreached, globally inclusive. Is this an aberration, or is it becoming more and more prevalent? Are more and more organizations doing this, or is it becoming an aberration? Here's what I often get when I ask people for expectations from the workshop, from this talk. What would they like to see? What would they like to learn about this? So people say that what are some current trends that impact and way forward? And this is from very much a technical audience. Understanding the importance of digital transformation and share with the teams. How can digital transformation help us improve efficiency? What should we look forward to in the next 5 to 7 years? how to create breakthroughs in organization strategy for digital transformation, how to show them this is up the line and down the line, the benefits are worth the cost, how to convince the bosses that change, or people down the line that change isn't bad. Should you re-engineer a process with new technology or use plug-and-play technology in existing processes? So I'll answer this right now over here itself. Should you re-engineer a process with new technology or use plug-and-play technology in existing processes? If you think back about with banks, when banks in India became nationalized, and my bank was, I think, in the late 90s. Yeah, the late 90s, I think my bank had become nationalized. And the branch was shut for a week and saying, computerization happening. So sorry, not actually, computerization was taking place. Computerization happening. We're going to be shutting down for a week. And the way you used to draw money earlier would that you would go to a counter, you would give your self check. The counter guy would look at your check, give you a token back. Then your check would go to somebody else, and this guy would look at your balance on a ledger, on a physical ledger. Go to a third person, he would look at your balance on another ledger. Go to a fourth person, nobody knows what this guy would do, but he would sign on the check. Then would go to the cashier. The cashier would call your token and give you the money. Then this bank was closed for computerization, and I love this stuff. So the very first day it opened, I was there, ready to do the computerization thing over there. So I gave, and I got a token back, and the token looked exactly the same. Then I saw my check going to the next guy, and he looked at my signature, but this time on a computer screen. Went to the third guy, he looked at my balance on a computer screen. Went to a fourth guy. Again, he signed off on the check. Nobody knows what he's there for. Finally, went back to the teller, the cashier, and I was given my money back. Computers had come in, but nothing had really changed. It was just done, things were just done a little bit faster, a little bit smoother, but nothing else had really changed. But when the ATM came in, that was a key transformation. That was the true power of digital. That completely changed the game. Then all you needed was a hole in the wall and a card to draw your money. That was the power. Unfortunately, most organizations are still in the way that the banks were at that point in time. There's a lot of processes that are there. We are doing them faster. We are doing them maybe a little bit, knocking off some steps, but nobody asks, can I do away with it at all? Why do we need this kind of a process at all? But that's the true power of completely short-circuiting a lot of what we take for granted. It's not about faster or lesser steps, but doing away with the process completely. Emerging digital transformations, risks and threats to vintage and legacy systems and mindsets. What should be the change management strategy? Some of the questions that I get. Mukesh, would you like to check for other expectations as well?
Yeah, so if you have any other expectation from the session, maybe you can just type it in the chat, and I'll continue to monitor that, Porus. So if you have any questions, you can also use the Q&A box and ask your questions. I will continue to monitor them as well. And as and when, if I can respond, I will respond to them. And otherwise, at the end of the session, we'll go through all of them and Porus will answer them.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what does it take to really go digital? Thanks, Mukesh. This is an HBR lead article, head fountain, the cover story that says that building the AI-powered organization, technology isn't the biggest challenge, culture is. If you look at the bottom of your screen, culture is the biggest challenge, not technology. That's interesting because we've always believed that technology is the biggest challenge. But it's always been not even culture, but mindsets really. Because digital comes in, but most people have no idea about the true potential. So how do you actually leverage? Also with many technical people, the challenge is on getting senior management to see the potential of it. So what does it really take to do all of that? The world is changing dramatically. How is the world changing? And what would that mean for an organization like yours? Singapore, where Mukesh is now at the moment, has come up with the Skills Future program, which really means that the expectation is for every adult Singaporean to pick up a second skill, every citizen. And why? Because no matter what you're doing, you must have a second skill. It could be something like whatever you're doing, you pick up a second skill. It could be like bread making, could be entrepreneurship, could be business. could be coding skills. So you're given $500 each to start the journey, and if you complete it with a certain grading or whatever, you get 5,000 Singapore dollars for that. So why this? Because the concern and the fear is about job losses. With digital automated manufacturing, a lot of technology coming in, the concern is widespread job losses. So how do we actually get people to prepare for the future? So that's the key issue that's taking place. Stanford study says by 2025, there'll be only electric cars on the road and no petrol or diesel cars. Why? Because of simple economics, market conditions. The EV, the electric cars, are guaranteed for 1,000,000 miles. Why? Because they have only 17 moving parts, 17. The petrol and diesel cars have 1,700 moving parts. There's no way these guys can be guaranteed for 1,000,000 miles. So theoretically, you can drive this car to the moon and back and it'll still be guaranteed. And recently, MG Motors in India has launched a digital car. It's an unlimited miles warranty for 5 years. So really, simple economics will actually shift people towards these cars. Niti Aayog says by 2032, there should be only electric cars in India. And France says by 2040, they will stop selling petrol and diesel in retail. Dairy farmers in Japan have tripled their income, all by putting a small Mitsubishi chip in the shoulder of each cow. So that Mitsubishi chip in the shoulder of each cow is able to measure the cows, track the cow's stride patterns, and based on the patterns is able to throw up whether the cow is healthy or sick. And if it is sick, what is it likely to be really suffering from? So most likely what it's suffering from. And this it picks up way before symptoms itself manifest, before fevers come in, before they manifest. And suddenly veterinarians are very worried. But it's such a triple their income because now with this chip, they've realized that the cow insemination cycle is 6 months, reproduction cycle is 6 months. The insemination period is 3 weeks. And if you inseminate a cow in the first week, there are 82% chances of getting a female calf. Inseminate in the third week, 78% chances of getting a male calf. So they're able to plan their herds perfectly now. There is no tryout, see how many vet, we need 17 female, but we don't know how many we'll get. It's all perfectly planned now. So with that single small Mitsubishi chip in the shoulder of each cow, dairy farmers have tripled their income. It's become a completely different industry for them over there. In the US, the fastest growing industry is not computers, it's not this, it's not software, it is textiles. Textiles has the highest growth. They export worth about $120 billion, 27, 30 new plants have been set up. Why textiles? USA and textiles. If textiles are being exported from the US, then the world is really turning upside down because the cost structure is crazy over there. But with automated manufacturing coming in, the setting in plants with hardly any people, that's all being automated. And the cost of manufacturing is cheaper than the cost of transportation and logistics from, say, China or Bangladesh or Vietnam or whatever. And therefore, this becomes a key shift for them. Germany exceeds renewable with traditional power usage this year. These are all very key indicators of something that is emerging. We're entering an IT and energy revolution simultaneously, and the speed of change is accelerating and the rate of acceleration is increasing. So we're headed into the future very, very rapidly at an exponential level. Not just 1, 2, but 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 becomes exponential in nature. Take a look at that financial report. That's from CNBC. And this report is written by a news bot, not by a human being. And suddenly journalists are very worried because the data comes in like this and the bot writes the report. 82% of financial reports are written by news bots. 78% of sports reports are written by news bots. That's all it really takes. So the potential of the digital transformation is tremendous at the moment. And what does it take to stay ahead of this? The rise of the robots, the world's first robotic lawyer. I got an unfair parking ticket, can you appeal for me? And the robot asks the questions and says, yes, you have a case under so-and-so section, so-and-so this thing, and we can appeal it for you. Now, law was the most preferred occupation for most people in the US. It was a preferred occupation. Now, there are hardly any people joining law because robot lawyers have now taken over. You only need lawyers to fight cases in court, not to do anything else at the moment. So at the moment, because tomorrow you have robotic lawyers and robotic judges as well. You have no idea where it's headed. Google's learning software rights to learn. The most high-valued competency, as you know, increasingly has been machine learning software. Now, Google wanted to have machine learning software. It couldn't find enough machine learning software experts because it's a constraint. So what they did was they taught machine learning software to build machine learning software. And the results were more powerful and efficient than the best system researchers themselves can design. A very interesting world. And there are three key forces that are shaping the world, our organization along with it, and the whole economics as well. The first is, of course, digital, with artificial intelligence, analytics, robotics, IoT, etc. The second, more unseen force is additive manufacturing or 3D printing. It's below the radar at the moment, but coming up very, very rapidly with huge potential to disrupt geographies itself. And the fourth is renewable energy. With these three, anybody in any part of the world can actually create anything. And take a look at this video about 3D printing, it's a house being made. And it's really amazing. Take a look at that. An entire one-bedroom BHK in a week. And in many cases, the structure is stronger than the traditional brick houses because of that pattern of manufacture. And also the gap between the walls acts as insulation. So in the summer, it's kept cool, and in winter, it's kept warm. So, and bridges are being made like this. There are skyscrapers being made in blocks, as you know. The world is really transforming. The larger midterm impact of all of this, disruption in almost every industry, IT, auto, manufacturing, logistics, healthcare. Take the auto sector. The big companies like the Marutis of the world, the Fords of the world may or may not be able to survive. But with EV coming in, but what happens to those thousands of ancillary manufacturers in countries like India who manufacture parts for the 1,700 moving parts? What happens to those people? What happens to those jobs? And this is in every industry that we're seeing. Manufacturing, like we saw with construction, manufacturing, logistics. 3D printing is creating a major loss of manufacturing jobs. Industry boundaries are blurring rapidly. Is Tesla a car or a computer? Is Alibaba an Ant Financial a retailer or a banker? It's the world's largest money market fund, $168 billion in holdings. It's more than most banks hold. Really, barriers to entry are crashing, and there's likely to be a chasm or dip before things get better. Sid Gordon, the management guru, calls it the forever recession. And we know what happened to Nokia. As Stephen Elop says, we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. But really, they did something wrong. They refused to leapfrog. They refused to acknowledge that the world was actually turning upside down. And they were left behind. So the world is changing rapidly, but how will this enable or affect organizations? What's the world record for the fastest settlement of a general insurance claim? So if you lost a computer or laptop and you want to claim for it, what's the world record for that, for the fastest settlement? About 3 seconds. And take a look at this video. So money paid, claim settled in just about 6 seconds. Now it's 3 seconds. What's the true impact of this? That seems great for insurance company. What if I'm not an insurance company? I'm somewhere else. Look at the true potential of this. Why are they able to settle a claim so fast? Because firstly, they don't want you to sign anything. It's not required. What they just need you to speak into a camera. Now, there's psychology involved as well as technology involved in that, because when you speak and say something, you are less likely to lie. If you write in a document, it's easier to lie and sign at the end. But if you speak into the camera, you're less likely to lie. Secondly, an artificial intelligence they call Jim is able to check by your body language, by the way you're speaking, by the dilation of your pupils. Are you lying or are you not lying? And depending on that, it's flagged to really to think through, to explore further, to investigate further, or to pay immediately. And the accuracy is about 98.7%. So it's a fairly good accuracy rate for this thing. So that's for insurance. But where else can this go? I work with different organizations and governments, etc. So it's going to be going to the income tax department. Why do you have a form for that? Why not just speak over there? And artificial intelligence will tell you whether you're most likely speaking the truth or not. I work with DGPs of police across states, and FIRs could now start off with this because there are so many false FIRs being generated. So maybe this could be a way of looking at FIRs, this as well as the usual statement. So because this is the potential of one technology being expanded across. Now, this is also being taken up. I shared this with somebody else, with one of India's largest general insurance companies. And now if you notice, they've come up with the instant settlement of medical claims and stuff. So Lemon is a small player. It hasn't dented the insurance agents in industry. It's too small a player. But what if a giant with deep pockets comes in, like Reliance Jio? What if somebody like that comes in? What happens then? Because digital has come in the traditional industry, a small player cannot disrupt it. But if a big player comes in with deep pockets, then the potential is transformational in nature. We've seen what happens with telecom, with Airtel, with Vodafone. I used to consult with them years back, and I used to sit with their meetings and reviews. And every review was about how much voice sold, how much SMS sold, how much voice sold, how much SMS sold. And internet was called VAS, value added service. So this was a value added service. Oh, okay, that's fine. You put it aside. Let's focus on voice. Let's focus on SMS. So every review was about that. What they didn't notice was VAS was growing. Internet was growing, but they were focused on this. And Jio saw this. For the first time in the world, as you know, they made this VAS, the value added service, they made the internet the main business. And everything else is piggybacking on that. So you have the internet as the main business and voice and SMS piggybacks on that. That's the VOLTE. For the first time in the world, that's happened. And these folks were blind, actually, because even about 5 years back, I was checking what happened. During festivals, if you remember, during Diwali, during Pongal, during New Year's, they would charge extra for SMSs. So if it's a festival, we'll charge you 10 rupees. WhatsApp had come in. People had migrated to WhatsApp. People had stopped sending these SMSs, but these guys completely didn't see that. And when a big player came in, this was the impact on telecom. RCom defaults and the shutdown now. Tata Teleservices exits. Airtel posts its first quarterly loss in 14 years. Vodafone net losses widened to 5,000 crores. Reliance Jio makes merry as Airtel and Vodafone lose more users. This is the real impact of a powerful person with a new technology coming in. And that's the biggest threat to organizations. So the question, Washington Post was being shut down as a newspaper because it just wasn't generating enough revenue. In 2013, as you know, Amazon bought it over for $250 million, and people were saying they've lost money. How stupid can you be? You can't run a newspaper just because you have something else over there. But they found a way of turning it around, and today people are calling it a steal. By 2016, they made profits, 17 profits, 2018 profits, and they're currently profitable completely. Website traffic has doubled. And they created a platform called ARC for newspapers to use, that's generating for them $100 million per annum. So somebody else with deep pockets coming in and using it in a completely different way is likely to transform industries in a very different way. And the global impact is likely to be this in the short run, about how jobs will be lost and stuff like that. But we'll come back to that later. Is a digital threat more internal or external? Many people internally fear digital for the fear of loss of jobs. But the threat is really external, because if somebody else comes in with deep pockets, many organizations are going to get completely short-circuited. Larger threat from new players, like the way Airtel and Voda lost to Jio, the way Nokia and BlackBerry lost to iPhone and Android, banks are losing to Ant Financial, Alibaba. The new players coming in who are not at all on the current radar. And that's the biggest threat, because they come in with a completely different mindset and a new technology. So how do large dinosaurs catch up? How do they leapfrog? Yes, let me take you through, let's go slightly away from digital to get a sense of the true power of it. How did you get in the life you're currently leading? How did you get in the life you're currently leading? And if, let me take a guess, most of us probably did 12 years of schooling, about 3 years or 4 years of undergrad work, maybe 1 year, 2 years of postgrad work. Then you joined an organization, worked really hard at it, and then got promoted over the years, or you started your own business. And here we are sitting here together at this point in time. But tell me, why 12 years of schooling? It's been 12 years of schooling for the last 30 years, 35 years. Information has exploded since then. Knowledge has exploded since then. So don't we need more years of schooling? Don't we need 18 years of schooling? Don't we need 5 years or 6 years of undergrad work? Don't we need 3 years of postgrad work? On the other hand, new ways of learning have emerged. New technologies of teaching have emerged. The massive online courses, the Khan Academy, or experiential learning, all these have emerged. So don't we need much less than that? Don't you need 6 years of schooling? Don't you need 1 year of undergrad work? Don't you need 6 months of postgrad work? Where do these structures come from? These structures really come from people who have gone before us and belong to a different world. And we fit into those structures and they feel comfortable. Even our kids are in those structures and we feel comfortable with that. But the world has dramatically transformed. Let's say you want to put working children into full-time school. In what class do you put a 13-year-old child who's never had a day of schooling in his life? There's a 13-year-old child, as you know, in India, we have child labor, and there are 13-year-old kids who are completely illiterate, never had a day of schooling in their lives. What class do you put this kid into? You want to put them in a full-time school. The usual response? Put them or her into first standard, because you need to learn reading, writing, subjects. You need to learn the basics. So we were doing that for years and years and years and years and years. We were doing that. We were putting these children into first standard because you have to learn from the basics. But these 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds would quit. They liked to be in school. They loved to be in school. They yearned to be in school, but very embarrassing, because you're 13 years old and you got 6-year-olds running between your legs. Very embarrassing. So they would quit. They would go back to work. So this organization out of Hyderabad called MV Foundation, M. Venkatarangaya Foundation, they said we'll put children into age-appropriate classes. What does that mean? A 13-year-old will go to class 8. A 14-year-old will go to class 9. A 15-year-old will go to class 10. But how do you do that? So they hit upon what they call bridge camps. In 9 months, they ramp up these kids. What does ramp up mean? They teach them writing with understanding, reading with understanding, maths, physics, chemistry, biology, the subjects of class 8, class 9, class 10. And they put them into these schools. And kids perform. Not the best in the class, not the worst, middle levels. This is not a small operation. 10 lakh kids have gone through this system. 1 billion kids have gone through this system. There are about 23 doctors from here, about 1,800 engineers. And the vast majority are government servants, teachers, journalists, people working in call centers. It's completely transformed their lives. And the Right to Education Act in India has happened because of this organization, because now the government knows that all you need is 9 months to ramp up. and you can put them into full-time school. You don't need to go through all those schools again. So if you're 14 years old, 15 years old, it doesn't mean that you've missed the bus. It doesn't mean that you have to go in for adult education. You can actually be mainstreamed. And UNICEF is now taking this across the world. So really, what has MVF really achieved? They've short-circuited 8, 9, 10 years of schooling to just 9 months, put 1 million kids into full-time school, broken free of the poverty-first, education-second myth. The whole belief was, why are children out of school? Because of poverty. First tackle poverty, then education will be tackled. But poverty is a huge challenge, and it's too big. But so they said they reversed it. Let's education first, poverty second. They ignored poverty completely and went after education. And the poorest of the poorest children went into schools. And that completely transformed this whole thing. They created a new pattern of rapid ramp up. Every kid is ramp up. Nobody who has failed. They have a different way of ramping up each child. They've triggered the right RTE, the Right to Education Act in India. And UNICEF is now taking this across the world. Are there any underlying principles can be applied to business, to work, to personal life, to digital transformation? If you notice, they moved, what MVF did is that they moved from incremental to leapfrog, from 8 years of schooling to just 9 months. That's a leapfrog. They did much more with far less, like we saw with Mishkin Ingewale and the machine over that he created, the cool tech of the ToucHB. Much more with far less. They've crashed resources, the number of teachers required, schools required. They don't set up more schools, the same schools. Schools are not performing at capacity. They found a way of helping them as well. They've crashed resources, they crashed time, they crashed effort in teaching these kids. They used process to break free of performance. We've always thought dependent on intelligence or academic ability or talent. No, they have a process to overcome all of this. They didn't solve the problem of poverty, they made it completely irrelevant. They chose an enabling reality. Parents want kids to be educated. So there are two realities. Parents are poor, they need the kids' income. Second reality, the parents want their children to be educated. There is this hope, this aspiration that mera beta afsar banega, meri beti afsar banegi, my son or daughter will be an officer and sit in an office and not work on the fields. They worked on that reality, and parents sacrificed a great deal. And finally, no compromises, no trade-offs. Children will go to age-appropriate classes. A 13-year-old will go to class 8. A 14-year-old will go to class 9. And because of this, this happened. What's our usual performance model? Is this the usual performance model? Set goals, work hard, put in resources, seek out and attract the best talent, solve root causes of problems, the 5 whys, be realistic, be practical, make the necessary compromises and trade-offs. And if all this doesn't work, what do you do? Step 7, pray. Some people say you should start with that. So, but where does this performance model come from? How come everybody across the world, just yesterday I finished a session with the Tuck School of Business in the US folks. So 2 days back actually. So how come everybody around the world is following this exact same performance model? It's again something that has emerged over the years, like education, 8 years, 9, 12 years of schooling, 4 years of undergrad work, 2 years of postgrad work. These are all structures that have come in. And this is not the performance model that leapfroggers follow. Leapfroggers like Shanta Sinha of MV Foundation or Mishkin Ingewale that we saw with the first video that we saw. That's not the performance models that these guys follow. It needs a different mindset. You can have all the tools with you, but if the mindset hasn't changed, then the tools will be used incrementally. So how do you actually shift? What kind of mindset should these guys have? The 7 paradoxes of leapfrog performance. You know, paradoxes are the flip side, the upside down part of it. The paradox 1 is don't set goals. Why? Because most goal setting is incremental. It's based on past performance. It's based on industry growth rates. It's based on sector growth rates, none of which is an accurate indicator of true potential. If Mishkin Ingewale had decided to set goals, the guy who completely transformed hemoglobin testing, said goals, he would have said, I would have from 2000, this thing, from so many deaths, I'll reduce by this, by this, by this, by this. I'll slowly reduce my costs. I'll slowly do this. Would never have worked. Shanta Sinha from Shanta Biotech, sorry, from MV Foundation for the schooling, she didn't set a goal of limiting so much. It was a leapfrog challenge. Every child in full-time school. Mishkin Ingewale was eliminate malarial deaths, or eliminate anemia deaths around the world. Leapfrog challenges, not goals, not reduce, eliminate. So not goal setting, but a leapfrog challenge. What can we do that's completely leapfrogging in nature? Second paradox is don't work hard. You guys must be loving me by now. The paradox is that lazy people work hard. Hard work is not the differentiator. Some of the hardest workers are amongst the most mediocre performers. You must have seen that. Hard work is not the differentiator. It's to just work 2 days a week on your current job or role and free up the rest of the time to take on a digital transformational journey, if you will. And somebody had seen this and he sent me a photo from Africa, but he was touring. This is from Zaire or Zimbabwe. And as you see, the photo says, if hard work pays, show me a rich donkey. Even truck drivers know it. So hard work is not the differentiator. Third paradox is don't seek resources. Resources are a trap. They trap us into an existing paradigm. If MV Foundation, Shanta Sinha says, if I had the money, I would probably have set up more schools. Because I did not have the money, I was forced to think differently. MV Foundation is almost bankrupt every point in time because they're constantly into these things. So they are always short of money and they're forced to think completely differently. Mishkin Ingewala, the guy with the ToucHB, did not have the resources. If he had the resources, he says he would probably have set up a smarter computer counter. He did not have the resources, so he was forced to think completely differently. Resources are a trap. Crash resources, constraints set us free. Talent is a limiter. Talent masks inefficiencies. If you need talent to differentiate, then nothing else about your organization is differentiated. Then you only need smarter people. Then your systems, your strategies, your processes, the way you use the technologies, nothing is differentiated. Then you only need smarter people, and that's never a good place to be. What do I mean by talent? The minimum qualifications required, of course. But if industry average performance is at this height and top performers are over here, what can we do to move our current average performers to the industry top performer level? And our top performers, of course, be higher. So it's not about getting more of the top performers to hire for us. What can we do to create our system so that our average performers perform at the industry top level? That is our challenge. And technology has made it completely easy, but provided we think about it like that. It's not to fit in. Very often technology is being now used to fit into something, but can we use it to redesign? And that's what these paradoxes are really. Can we redesign impact? Don't solve large problems. Many large problems do not need to be solved. Example, the problem of poverty. Problem solving keeps us trapped in linearity. Better, cooler counter was not the solution. They didn't solve the problem. They made it completely irrelevant. Make problems irrelevant. For example, during Harshad Mehta's time, if you noticed, the problem was that the Bombay Stock Exchange was very, very non-transparent, unfair practices, and the whole stock market crashed. The government tried to clamp down on them, but they are a private society. It's a private stock exchange, and they have their own rules. Nothing much the government could do. They kept trying to make them more honest, more transparent. Please be this, please do that. But they weren't doing it. So they didn't solve that problem. And India is not China where you can say off with their heads or whatever it is. So they weren't able to do anything. So what did they do? They didn't solve the problem of lack of transparency or ethics or whatever it is. They made it irrelevant. They created the National Stock Exchange that had all the behaviors they wanted to see in the Bombay Stock Exchange. And the moment the NSE began to make money, zoop, BSE became transparent. And now BSE says at this bottom that this logo is, we are the new BSE. Now still the NSE guys that your logo should be that we made them new. So don't solve large problems. Many large problems don't need to be solved. And technology has never been more of an enabler to making problems irrelevant. Your customers are facing problems. Organizations are facing problems. Many of these problems can be made completely irrelevant. It's not even worth going after them. Don't face reality. There are multiple realities. For example, with MV Foundation, the education group, The reality was that parents are poor and they need the kids' income to supplement their income. That's a reality. And everybody in the sector is focusing on that reality. And it's logical, but parents need the money, right? Parents' family is poor, so the kid has to earn. But the second reality was that the parents' dream that my son, my daughter will not work in the fields, will work in the office. Afsar banegi, will become an officer. That was the dream. And they focused on that reality. And with that reality, they made a lot of sacrifices. So there are always multiple realities. There are multiple customer realities, there are multiple employee realities, there are multiple stakeholder realities. Choose an enabling reality. And no compromises, no trade-offs. Leapfrogs are about the and, not either or. Like we saw with Mishkin Angewale, eliminate deaths due to anemia. Not reduce, diminish, absolutely. In MV Foundation, all kids into full-time school in age-appropriate classes and will cross 10th. These are 3 non-compromised positions that they've taken, and they've made it happen. The 7 principles of Leapfrog Impact are move from incremental to Leapfrog, crash resources, work less hard, use fewer resources, because resources can become a trap. No trade-offs, no compromises. It's and, not either or. Process beats talent. Choose an enabling reality. There are multiple realities. Choose an enabling reality. Don't solve problems, make them irrelevant. Many large problems do not need to be solved. They can be made irrelevant. And create self-imposed constraints that are greater than environmental constraints. Now, these 7 principles are what it really takes also to create transformational impact with digital. Each of these. The scale of thinking, the crash resources, the processes that make average people perform at extraordinary levels, no compromises, no trade-offs. And the fact is that you don't need to solve too many problems. You can make them irrelevant at a completely different scale. There are predictable blocks. In any journey that we do, there are predictable blocks. Scale of challenge. Is it incremental or leapfrog? If it is incremental, we've already limited ourselves. Resource block. We'll never ever have enough resources. Nobody will have enough resources. Can we do much more with far less? Your aspirations should always exceed your resources, because that is where the game begins to change. And if you're a resource scarce company, great. Talent. We'll never ever have enough talent. We'll never get enough talent. Process overcomes lack of talent. It doesn't mean that we cannot perform at high levels because we cannot attract the best talent. Problems, there'll always be problems. Can we make problems irrelevant? And compromises, there'll always be compromises and trade-offs, the urge to compromise and trade-offs. Principle is no compromises, no trade-offs. Let's begin to put this together, and let's go non-digital and digital as well. You are a leader in the newspaper industry because only leaders make money, but it's a long, hard route to leadership that takes 5 years. In the newspaper industry, there's only one way to launch a newspaper. You get ad revenue, you grow in the new city. And it takes you 5 years to be a leader if you become a leader. But Dainik Bhaskar was a newspaper group out of Bhopal. And they did the same route in Bhopal. They took 5 years. They took 5 years to be, I think, 10 years to be leaders in Bhopal. Under 10 years to be leaders in Madhya Pradesh, in the state of Madhya Pradesh. And finally, they were leaders. But they wanted to grow. Then the old man and his 3 sons, the sons have grown up now. They had their own aspirations. They wanted to grow across. They didn't want to be in a small city or town anymore. So they wanted to go to different cities. Let's fight here. Let's go here. Let's go here. But the old man said, look, we don't have the resources for this. We cannot fight. It takes you 5 years to be a leader. And there's only one way to launch a newspaper in history. You get to a new city of launch, get revenue, launch. 5 years to be a leader. And we cannot afford to fight for 5 years because we can't go to a city and get into a 5-year war. We don't have the money for that. So then the son said, okay, what about 2.5 years? Can we fight for 2.5 years? Again, the old man said, no, 2.5 years is too much because a leader will be fighting back. So what about 1 year? Even that is too much. So what about 6 months? So then the old man said that, if you can do 6 months, you may as well go for theoretical best. And what was theoretical best? Leaders from day one. Theoretical best is day one. So let's make leaders from day one. So they found a different way to launch the newspaper. They went to Jaipur, the first city of launch, and they hired 750 people on a part-time basis for 3 months. And they trained them on body language, on engagement skills, how do you speak to people, how do you meet people over there. And they sent these 700 people to 200,000, 2 lakh houses in Jaipur to ask people, what do you want in the newspaper? And people said things like, don't put blood and gore on the front page. The images of blood and gore, children see that, get traumatized. I think they also said, don't put stock market news on the front page. We see that and we get traumatized. So stuff like that. So they gathered all that information. They took all that information. And most people will not stick to many different things. Maximum 5 to 7 is what you'll get as a pattern. So they went back, they collated all that information, they put them into those 4, 6, 5, 7 patterns, created proofs for the newspapers, and the same people met the same houses again. The second time they visited. And they told people, look, sir, look, man, you asked for this, we're giving you this, will you buy? And they say, yeah, of course I'll buy. This is my idea, of course I'll buy. And that created a tremendous enrollment. And people bought on the spot. They bought a newspaper, paid in advance for a paper that would come out 9 months later. And when these folks launched, they launched as leaders from day one. 1,72,000 copies on the day of launch, and leaders from day one. The previous leader was Rajasthan Patrika, 1 lakh copies. They stayed over there. These guys completely jumped. Was it a fluke? No. They went to small towns in Haryana, leaders from day one. They went to Chandigarh, leaders from day one. They went to Ahmedabad. That is the single biggest newspaper launch in history. 4,52,000 copies on the day of launch. And leaders from day one. And this newspaper group in 7 years is now the 4th largest group in the world. The first 3 are Japanese. The 4th is the Dainik Bhaskar group. Because they've leapfrogged. They've had a completely different way of thinking and working. Elon Musk, as you know, is famous for leapfrogs. And this is his challenge. Tesla builds the world's largest battery in just 100 days. 100 days or it's free. Pizza delivery, 30 minutes or it's free. Now it's battery delivery. And it's a $50 million bet. And of course, he won it with South Australia. That's what his battery looks like. Look at the scale of thinking. Sorry. Look at the scale of thinking. Look at the boldness of thinking and the leapfrogs that go along with it. It forced the whole industry, the whole sector, his organization to think completely differently. Be the world's largest video mailing company. That was Netflix. Then mailing went out. These guys didn't change their aspiration. They said, be the world's largest streaming company. And as you know, it is the world's largest streaming company, even in India. Scale of thinking. So what's common between all of this? 100 days or it's free. Make the world's slimmest water resistant watch, that's Titan. Be the world's largest video streaming company. Be leaders from day one. What's common between all of this? If you notice, these are leapfrog challenges, not incremental goals. Now let's try out something. Let's put this together, because what will really differentiate your digital impact from everybody else is first your scale of thinking. So let's put this together. Let's try this out. What does this look like to you? It's a square. Sometimes it looks a bit stretched, but it's a square. Now here's a challenge. Divide the square into 4 equal parts. Now what do I mean by 4 equal parts? The entire square into 4 equal parts. So there cannot be a 5th part left out. So for example, the entire square, if you can see that? Okay, is it visible?
Can you just show it again?
The entire square into 4 equal parts. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Some people do this. I'll come closer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 parts.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is correct. Some people also do this. Leave patches over there. No. So the entire square into 4 equal parts. Do try it out, because you'll find it extremely illuminating, and it will connect the digital piece and Leapfrogs very, very well. Do try it out. So give me at least 10 different ways, and you have 4 minutes to do it in. So you have 4 minutes, and at 4 minutes, I'll stop.
Yeah, please go on.
Sure. So assuming I ask you to cross 3 feet, what is the purpose of a Leapfrog challenge? If I were to ask you to cross 3 feet, go over 3 feet, you'll probably step over it. Increase it to 4 feet, you'll probably jump over it. If I ask you to go over, not under, over 20 feet, what would you do? Most people say they would take a ladder or a pole vault. So great, at 20 feet. 2,000 feet you have to go over, not under again. What would you do? Some people say take a helicopter or a plane or a parachute. Yeah. Now, the idea of a ladder or a pole vault never happens at 3 feet. Never. Why? Not required. The brain is a very efficient mechanism. But it will never happen at 3 feet to take a ladder or a pole vault. Not required. It only happens at 20 feet. The idea for ladder or pole vault happens at 20 feet. The idea for plane or helicopter never happens at 20 feet. Why? Not required. It only happens at 2,000 feet. The brain is a very efficient mechanism. The purpose of a Leapfrog challenge is not to work harder. It is to get all these ideas available to us. Because if you have an idea, if you have a challenge of 3 feet, you'd only get those 2 ideas of step over or jump over. You'd never get aeroplane or a pole vault, and these might be one of those best ideas possible also. So the purpose is not to work harder, but to make all these ideas available to us. That's the purpose of starting off a digital transformation journey with a Leapfrog. Otherwise, we'll tend to lose a lot on the table. So moving from incremental to Leapfrog, I get what you're saying, but I'm a senior manager, but this thing, how do I Leapfrog? Look at this gentleman called Natarajan. Take a look at what he's done through his life. He joined Enfield India as a quality manager, and warranty cost per bike were 90 rupees. He brought it down to 9 rupees. Rejection cost 1.5%. What does 1.5% mean? It meant 50 rupees. He brought it down to 5 rupees. He joined Greaves as a manufacturing assistant. He transformed manufacturing time from 62 days to 1 day. He joined Tanishq as a factory head and reduced gold in from 30 days to 3 days. If you notice that, look at the way he brands it as well. 3-day miracle under Tanishq. 1-day wonder. Manufacturing time of jewelry has crashed from 15 days to 1 day. He's created diamond sorting machines. Across the world, diamonds are sorted by hand, but this guy has created diamond sorting machines, which are now being sold at $100,000 each globally. This factory is a profit center. Do you notice a pattern in what he's done? Is there a pattern that you notice? If you notice, the pattern is 90 to 9, 50 to 5, 60 to that's beyond 10x. In every single thing, he's done 10x. Now, 10x is actually a very reasonable figure. It's easier than 2x or 3x. The most organizations find in 30%, 20% as very good shifts. But 10x is actually very, very reasonable. And especially digital, a 10x impact is a very, very rational impact. It's easier than 2x or 3x. Why? Because with 2x or 3x, the default response is hard work. With 10x, no amount of hard work can get you there. You have to think differently. So that is where the whole part of different thinking comes in. Why do organizations put in technologies but perform at the same levels? Because they haven't shifted the mental model of potential performance impact. What is the impact that I want to create? So really it's about transforming scale of thinking. 10x is often easier than 2x or 3x. 10x is actually a very reasonable figure. In any process, any shifts, I work with organizations across sectors, and invariably we do 10x. Second paradox, it removes fear of failure, because people don't get scared if they fail at 10x. You fail at 10x, you get 5x, 6x, 7x. You fail at 2x, you feel a bit of a loser. So 10x is a very interesting paradigm for actually implementing whatever you want to get into. I'm going to move from here. How to begin a Leapfrog journey? How do you start with it? So how did the Tesla Australia Leapfrog journey begin? It began with this whole thing, 100 days or it's free. So it was Leapfrog challenge. It starts with the Leapfrog. So step one, the Leapfrog challenge. Step two, the keystones. What are keystones? The 20% of areas will give you 80% of your impact, the 80-20 principle. Step three are the ideas. Now let me put this together. Let me explain this with an example. I was working with a steel plant, and the challenge was to reduce cost by $6 million. And they called people in to ideate, and nothing really happened. Why? Because people don't think in terms of money in a plant. Like I'm sure in your organization as well, unless you're a finance person or a salesperson or the CEO, you don't think in terms of money. They think in terms of something else. So we call these folks again later. And I asked this plant head that if we break this down into 3 keystones, the 80-20 areas, what could some of these be? So he said that if we reduce fuel consumption from 16 to 15 liters per ton, if we reduce moisture by 0.5% in iron ore, and if we reduce power by 3 units per ton, then we'll save $6 million. So we call the same people in, gave 1/3 the group the challenge, the first challenge, 1/3 the second challenge, and 1/3 the third challenge. And then we tracked, they came up with some very interesting ideas. We implemented those ideas and tracked those ideas 3 years later. And this was a net savings that emerged. People can't think in a large frame like that, but they can think in from 2 shifts. I want an idea to move from X to Y, from this to this, from power by 3 units to 12 units per ton. These are some of those ideas that emerged. I'm going to move that fast because this is not this thing. Another organization increased sales from 20 million to $200 million. Look at the 10x throughout now. And so what are the 3 keystones? Number of customers to increase from 3,000 to 10,000. Ticket size has to increase from 3 lakhs to 10 lakhs. Conversion ratio to increase. Therefore, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? This organization is at the moment on $120 million. And it's not even July 2020. 6 December 2018, I was working with the Indian Revenue Service, and this is with the CBEC folks who handle these challenges. And one part of it was GST. That of every 100 people in India who pay GST, only 60% file returns. So the hope was, can we move from 60% to 75%? Now, if you make an incremental shift like that, you will only get incremental ideas. So as long as they were thinking from 60% to 70% or 75%, the ideas that were coming in is about, we should remind people to file the returns. We should tell them, we should send reminders. We can put them on to chartered accountants who can do this. And it really wasn't about reminding. People just didn't want to, they don't know how to do it. And it's too expensive to do it because I'm paying for chartered accountant $5,000 a month for filing my returns. And not many people can afford that in small businesses. So it wasn't really about lack of ability, willingness, it was lack of ability. So there's only one way to deal with something like this. 75% is not good enough. So ask them, what is the theoretical best? The theoretical best is 100%. Everybody files returns 100%. So okay, let's go with that. Come up with ideas for that. You say, no, 100%, it's not possible. That's a theoretical best. Go back, come back with ideas. And they went and they came back and said, if we have to do 100% filings, everybody has to file, then we cannot depend on people. It has to be smart systems and dumb people. Dumb is not foolish, but people don't take it away from people's hands. Remove the friction that is there. So smart systems, dumb people. Then the idea that emerged was, we already, when you file GST, you already upload your invoice on the web. When you're actually filing the payment, not the returns, but you upload your GST, your invoice, and then the thing is getting paid over there. So the idea that emerged was, why have your own invoices? Why don't we create invoices on the web, the GST portal, and the invoices over there, use our invoices, and the moment you use an invoice and send it off to your customer, we pull out everything, and the returns will automatically be filed. So suddenly the whole thing began to change. Interesting idea, fine. The government has ideas, they are brilliant, but what's going to happen? Nothing going to happen with that. Very, very peculiarly, 6 months later exactly, I got this email from them See, this is what we've done now. So free accounting and billing software for small taxpayers. Dear taxpayer, the GST Council decided to provide a free accounting and billing software for your business. This software can help your business to create bills, invoices, manage inventory, create your account statements, balance sheets, GST returns. And this was it. So this began with the Leapfrog challenge to move from 60% filings, not 75%, but 60% to theoretical best. When you go for theoretical best, your solutions dramatically change. And the easiest way to do it is often with digital, with a Leapfrog, with technology. Anything less than you had about teaching, training, coaching, reminding, helping, enabling, no. So the purpose of a Leapfrog challenge in whatever we're doing is to completely change the game. So recap, Leapfrog challenges need to be go for the theoretical best. 10x is a very reasonable figure, could be 10x your top line, 10x your bottom line, x by 10 the time taken for a particular process, x by 10 the time taken to ramp up new hires if you're in technology, get 10x more for the same amount of resources, x by 10 the resources for a particular process, x by 10 the steps in a particular process, begin and prove it and ramp it up. So this is where people are failing with digital. All the technology existed, but it's not enough to put in old technology with old challenges or old mindsets. The whole game has to change. Mukesh, how are we on time?
We have about another 5-7 minutes, Porus.
Sure. Wrap it on that time. What about resources? Kirloskar Brothers is a very interesting water company, and they're a small company. They're only about $50 million company. And one part of the project, there was this large water project called Sardar Sarovar project that happened, as you know, in Gujarat. And Kirloskar is based out of Pune. And one part of the project was to lift an entire river 72 meters in the air, 240 feet in the air. Why? Because low-lying areas are irrigated, but high-lying areas are dry. The water runs down. So these areas are all arid. So this was this project to irrigate all of these areas. Now it's happened here in the, and $420 million was the consensus bid. Companies came from Japan, from Italy, not Italy, Japan, France, and the UK. And they bid $420 million. But Kirloskar was a $50 million company. There's no way they can bid at $450 million. So what is the maximum we asked the CFO? $70 million. So they bid for $70 million. But how do you crash quarantine the project costs? So then they looked at every part of the project, and the most expensive part was not the pumps. It was the valves, the computerized butterfly valves that prevented the water from flowing back. And these cost a few millions of dollars each. So then they said that, what if we did away with these valves at all? Where else does water stop flowing? In nature, water stops flowing if there is an incline, and water stops flowing if there is a block. There's an air block, an air pocket. An air pocket is a natural valve, but we don't see it like that. It's a pain, because all plumbing systems have created patents to prevent air blocks. And an air block is actually a natural valve. So these folks, the yellow things that you see on the top right hand of your screen, that's the first time in the world they created the system where the water is getting pumped like that. At this point in the system, we'll put in and inject an air, we'll inject air with high pressure, an air block gets created, and water stops flowing. It's a natural valve. And hydro engineers were shocked because it's never been done before. So they had to experiment, prove it. They proved in different terrains, different ways. And 1.5 years, they had to prove it again and again. It worked beautifully. And finally, when they did it, the project cost crashed by 83%. And Kirloskar also did what most Indian companies don't do. They patented this innovation around the world. And today, no large water project like this can happen without Kirloskar's involvement. And they don't give the technique. They want to be part of it. So in the last 7 years, they've grown from $50 million to about $5,000 or $4,000, $4,000 million. But the key question here is, if Kirloskar did have $420 million in their kitty, what do you think they would have done? They'd probably have done more of the same. Because they did not have the resources, they were forced to think differently. Resources are a trap. They trap us into an existing paradigm. For them, lack of resources was a game changer. So resources are a trap, they trap us. Eliminate the essential. Over the years, all industries create an accepted path to success. These are essential must-haves, must-dos, and live-withs. So for Kirloskar, if you notice, in the water transportation industry, we must have valves. But when they removed that must-have, they suddenly found a completely different solution. For Dainik Bhaskar, the newspaper group, you have to live with 5 years till you finally become a leader. They remove that live with, and so we'll do it in one day. That was a transformation. So what digital should help you do is battle industry mindsets. What are the must-haves, must-dos, and live-withs in your industry? And go after them, knock them out, and you'll find it's never been easier to knock them off. So resources can be a trap, constraints set us free. Do leapfrogs need talent? Not really. Process overcomes lack of talent. So sales head from multinational. So let me just go through this faster and say, how would you actually shift from talent to process? Identify a problem, that an area that is blocking you. Don't say who blocks, say what blocks. Reframe it as a system problem. Be clear about what you want and finish the sentence. The solution is to install a system or process that will give you increase sales 100% this year to 50 surgeries a day, reduce people ramp up time from 90 days to 10 days, whatever it is. A system or a process. Like we saw with that chap, smart systems dumb people. It wasn't about the whole thing with the GST guys. They created a system that will give us 100% of filings. A system or a process. They were not dependent on people, on talent, or on people being compliant. It wasn't about compliance. It is by default it's done. So system or a process that will give you 100% of what you want. So how Leapfrog challenges, crash resources, and technologies come together. Titan jewelry is an example. A diamond necklace can have something like 223 diamonds in it. And each of these are different sizes. Now, all of this is sorted by hand for one diamond jewelry, for one necklace. Imagine you're manufacturing 50 or 100 necklaces. Imagine hundreds. It's a back-baking job. And how are diamonds sorted in the world? Everywhere sorted by hand, whether it's in De Beers in Antwerp, USA, and Europe, Kimberley, South Africa. Everywhere it's by hand. But Titan Jewelry created a diamond sorting machine. And that's the diamond sorting machine that you see in the bottom right. And this sorts diamonds. This is now being exported at $100,000 each. It's $1 billion opportunity for them. So that impact was transform productivity, transform quality, crash manpower. People were reassigned and completely changed the game. So what they did was they went completely digital, sensors, AI, crashed down the time to bag hours to bag the diamonds, completely changed the game over there. Now jewelry inspection is being done by a machine using algorithms that transform human aesthetics into a computer. Now here's where the game begins to change. Nobody came to them and offered this. It was an in-house initiative. Why did this happen? The question is, what happened before Titan Jewelry did this? What happened was that Ratan Tata in 2002 gave the call to grow the retail business from $30 billion to $2.1 billion in 10 years, 70x jump in performance. That forced to relook at bottlenecks, constraints, accepted reality. To grow 70x, we can't have 70x more people. We have to find a completely different way of sorting diamonds. And that's when this thing began to happen. They didn't realize the constraints till the 70x challenge came in. Look at your organization, look at your clients' organizations. They will not be recognizing the constraints unless the scale begins to shift completely. Most organizations, most industries are working only one paradigm. This is what it is. This is the resource results ratio. But when you do a 70x shift, then what happens? Then the whole thing begins to shift. Anyway, these guys did $2.5 billion and $2.2 billion came from Titan's Mission Impossible. They did do it. And this was the key enabler, the digital shift that they did over there. So the whole thing is, how do 7 principles work? Your spotlight areas, growth goals, 10x challenge, 70x challenge. Resources, crash resources. Talent, process beats talent. Solve problems, make them irrelevant. Compromises and trade-offs, no compromises, no trade-offs. And it's never been easier. What you should be able to do as a result of digital transformation, it begins not with technology, but with aspiration. It begins with your end in mind. Very often we want to fit in, क्या technology है वहाँ पे? What's technology over there? Can we put it in over here? No, it doesn't work like that. That's incremental. So what you should be able to achieve is do 70x to 100x growth in 10 years with half the investments, do it with existing manpower, customize it for individual customers. It doesn't have to be mass produced, can be customized completely, make existing problems irrelevant, and break free of trade-offs and compromises. This is your sheet for digital. This is what you should be getting, going after really. For example, if you've seen every dimension, scale of challenge, progress can only be sequential, incremental, but here take on Leapfrog, take on non-linear challenges. The reason much of digital is incremental is because expectations are incremental. Resources, go to the last point, crash resources, do much more with far less. Doing more for more is completely unnecessary in a digital world. Talent, process beats talent. Go to the last column. The combination of algorithms for insight, sensors, AI make talent irrelevant completely. Don't solve problems, make them irrelevant. Digital makes seemingly unsurmountable problems or impossible problems irrelevant. Again, digital has changed the game. No compromises, no trade-offs. And constraints set you free. So this is where the whole part is. It's really the mental models and mindset areas. So key areas of walls and structures, consider all assets as liabilities. Whatever your assets currently are, consider them as liabilities. All processes are needed at all. So when I work with organizations, I work with the challenge and I work with this mental model over here. Now, interestingly, I find that CFOs are considered more for owning the digital initiatives of the company than most technology people. The CIOs are somewhere else, but the expectation of CFOs is to own the digital initiative. And why? Because these folks understand the business. They see money. The CEO and the CFO speak the same language, money. So unless we're able to explain to them the true potential of the technology in a way that's actually helping make a tremendous amount of money or save a tremendous amount of money, we're not going to be able to articulate it for the organization. That's the biggest gap I often find, that why aren't more organizations doing it? People are able to see the potential down the line. They're not able to explain it up the line. It's a very engineering mindset. For example, with that Kirloskar brothers, not the Kirloskar brothers, Kirloskar brothers. One chap was telling me, oh, you're able to move so many million tons of water, so many million liters of water per minute. Sort of big thing. MLD. So I don't understand MLD. What does it really mean? No, it's just so much, so much. So I finally went there to see it. And then I wrote in the book, they lifted an entire river vertically up in the air to irrigate these areas. These guys don't talk like that. They just don't talk like that. So technology has the only constraint really in my mind, I think Mukesh is planning some other session with you for something else, is to be able to articulate what you actually want to do. That's a key block really. Somebody else, Bosch has created a pump, a very simple pump, 2-stroke pump that will give you the same impact of a CRDI pump. But all they kept saying is that, this will give you so many bars of pressure. But what does it really mean? It really means that you can use your old engine and €20 to replace that and get the CRDI performance from the €20 cost only, instead of spending about a new vehicle or completely over there. So people need to be able to articulate it from a business perspective, the whole true potential. Unfortunately, people don't see the true potential. It's a technology, no. What does it do to change the game for the organization? To be 10x, to be an agent for change. So let me move from here. How will organizations change with digital? The key shift is from IT as a function to IT as a business model, IT as enabler to IT as a driver. It's happening more and more. From scale thinking to agility and speed, from mainstream technologies to cutting edge technologies, from the whole mindset of files, folders, pages. These are all old mindsets. Now with streams, Facebook walls, hashtags. The world is shifting completely. I'll move from here. So digital seems threatening, can also be vastly empowering. As organizations learn that they cannot create digital with industrial age structures, rules, and hierarchies. So Netflix, for example, treats employees as fully functional adults. What does that mean? Do your best, do the right thing, take appropriate risks. There are no expense reports to be approved, unlimited vacations, they have no limitations, no annual performance reviews, lucrative compensations packages, and yet people are performing. And if you just click on that link over there, you'll find exactly what they're doing over there. So it's very interesting how the whole world shifts. Organizations will migrate to Wikipedia model, where people are more paid volunteers and employees, where all ideas have equal rank, and they're not based on hippo management, where it is highest paid person's opinion, where contribution counts more than designation. Think YouTube videos or blogs. Viewers care more about how much a person adds value, not what the designation and degrees are. Where resources go to the leader who is the most inspiring, most relevant, not the most senior. Where leaders really serve their communities and rule over them. Think of website moderators, building a web community by adding value. This is where it's moving really many organizations, where tasks get chosen, not assigned. Like Mozilla, everything gets done, but nobody says what's to be done. And where power comes from sharing and not from hoarding. Think web communities. So really, the physical laws of linearity give incrementalism, hard work and effort, life imbalance, cause and effect, problem-solving mode, talent, less talent dropout, trade-off, compromises, imbalance. So the impact redesign is take on non-linear challenges, crash resources much more with far less, don't solve problems, make them irrelevant. So to leave you with a few, this thing is that the scale, like we saw in the beginning with the HBR article, it's not technology, it's culture. I would say it's not even culture, it is scale of thinking. It is scale of impact working forward, and then the technology. I work with technology companies across the planet. And that's the key shift that takes place, scale of thinking. And therefore fit in. Digital is a tool, it's not the end. On that note, shall I end?
Thanks, Porus. I think one of the reasons why we started off with this session is also the very fact that digital transformation, while everyone talks about digital transformation as the be all end all, I think the key word there is transformation, and digital is an enabler to that transformation. And the importance is that we need to be able to think transformationally and also then go out and act transformationally. Of course, the technology is already there. Some of that technology comes from SAP, some of that from partners and other technology vendors, but the scale of thinking and the ability to run transformational projects is inbuilt in the organization. So I hope that all of you have found the sessions to be extremely useful. So if there is one thing that you want to that you took away from this, which you can actually go out and practice, what would that be? If you can be kind enough to share that on the chat, that will be great. And if you have any specific questions for Porus, you can put it in the chat as well, and we'll see if how we can get the answers for those for you. And meanwhile, I know, Porus, it's been a long preparation and work for you. And thanks for sharing your insights and thinking with us. Truly, big gratitude to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks, Mukesh. Thanks for making that happen.
Okay, so I think one of the things that we also wanted to do going forward is that if you can drop a note to me and indicate to me whether you would like to do and see more of this, learn more about these Leapfrog challenges. We would like to arrange for a full day workshop as well. So if you like it, Whether you're watching right now or whether you're watching the recording, drop an email to us, admin@induscommunity.com, and we'll work with Porus and get that scheduled as well. So thank you so much. Thanks, Porus. I think let me stop the recording first.
Sure.
Yeah. And